WNST, place I've always wanted to live for a week and eat junk food and hang out. This guy was an old friend of ours from Baltimore, covering the Ravens. He's now covering the Eagles. He joined us a couple weeks ago on the eve of this little run. You doubted the Philadelphia Eagles, as I remember it, 2-3 weeks ago. Am I right, Turron Davenport?
No.
Were you a believer? Did you believe they were going to make it here?
I believe they would make it here.
Really?
But,
okay.
The reason why I thought they would make it here is different from why they made it here. I didn't think that Nick Foles was going to explode.
That's what I remember. I remember
Yeah.
you saying, it was before the first playoff game, you're like, Nick Foles. Nick Foles? I mean, at that point, it was before the first playoff game. He hadn't looked good at all. I mean, the Oakland game, the end of the season, and the meaningless game, but there was no – other than he loving the Eagles. Look, Vegas didn't like the Eagles either week. So, Vegas is usually not wrong about things like this, and Vegas might be wrong again this week.
Yeah, they could be. That line has shifted from +6 for the Eagles to +4. So I think they are starting to like them. But, I mean, for me, when I look at the game, it's so much about matchups. And you look at Eric Rowe, a former Eagle. He's covering the slot. And you look at Nelson Aguilar, a guy, man, he's turned it around. It's a great story that I don't think is really getting the attention that it should.
Well, I remember he was the guy we looked at drafting back when you were in Baltimore a couple years ago.
Yeah. I mean, he's a really good receiver, route runner. He's finally begun to relax and let the game come to him.
Well, Mayock and Kuiper loved him coming out of draft time.
At USC, he was awesome. I mean, we're talking about a guy, I think it was like 1,500 yards, 100 and something receptions. He was really good, so it's just good to see him. But looking at that matchup, he's moved inside to the slot, and I talked to him a lot about just being able to have that space. You got the two-way go. The corner can't use the sideline as an extra defender, and he has to chase you a lot more. And that cat and mouse game is something that Aguilar likes to play. So I really like that matchup. That's going to be one to watch. You flip it to the other side. A lot of the things that, are coming out from some of the guys that I talk to is the physicality. How you have to play physical against the Patriots. So naturally, I reach back to my Ravens roots, and I look at how the Ravens have played so well against the Patriots. They may not have always won, but I can't think of another team that's gone into Foxborough and been as competitive. Maybe the Steelers, but
Kansas City, but
but I'm talking about in the playoffs too.
Sure, right. It's one thing to talk about regular season. It's another animal for them.
So when you take that physical style of football play to them, especially getting that interior pressure, pushing the pocket back into Brady's face, it's something that he doesn't like. And I don't think any quarterback likes that. So I think that gives them that advantage with Fletcher Cox.
I'm just such a big fan of Philadelphia's defensive line, and not just their starting line. I mean, the rotation. I mean, they go 6 or 7 deep of guys that do a lot of different things well. And, I mean, Fletcher Cox is the anchor. I mean, he's the Pro Bowler, guy, big contract, all of that. But, I mean, it really, it does remind you back to when the Ravens had some great defense. And, they've got some good players now, certainly. But, some of the Ravens teams, great teams of the past where, they had Lionel Daltons and different guys that never started, but could come in and make that much of an impact. I just think this Philly front is really, really good. And that was the one thing, when Wentz went down, people were ready to dismiss them. And I never thought they were going to get to this point, and I don't think Nick Foles believed it at that point either, frankly, if you were being honest.
Well, the issue wasn't with Foles maybe making plays to win games. It might have been he's going to make plays to lose his games in the case of Foles. I mean, that the defensive line couldn't stand up for that, but the defensive line could get him the ball back. I mean, I think we all felt that way about the Eagles. We didn't feel like the defense was going to take a step backwards.
Yeah, and Luke, you talk about the depth of that team on the defensive line. I mean, it's like, remember the movie Will Smith was in, I Am Legend?
Yeah.
And you know how those things just kept coming and
kept coming.
That's how they are.
Sure.
And you're right, Nestor. They have been able to give the the offense the ball back. And that was a big thing, in the Vikings game. I mean, they were down 7-0. And you have Patrick Robinson, a guy who's traveled, to multiple teams, a pick 6. I'm going to tell you something. I felt that press box literally shaking.
Yeah.
It was literally shaking, right? And then you look later in the game, one of the turning points going into halftime, it was early in the second quarter. Derek Barnett, the rookie, again,
had a good year.
Awesome year. He came in and he was able to get the sack strip the Vikings were driving. He got the sack strip, and they were driving to tie the game. Next drive, deep pass to Alshon Jeffrey. So it just goes to show you just how getting the ball back and establishing that momentum for your team could really help the offense, and that's what the defense has done.
It's all brought to you by our friends at Howard Bank, a relentless commitment to be the best at everything they do. Our new sponsor here and our sponsor of all coverage of Super Bowl 52. We're at the Mall of America. It's also brought to you by Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast. Turron remembers all that coffee and fried chicken, all the good stuff, the gassing up at Rofo. But he's north of the border now doing the Eagles Wire thing up in Philadelphia. And last but never least, DNL Window Tinting. Of course, 27 years now of tinting everything, including maybe the windows here at the Mall of America as the sun comes through. Cars, boats, businesses, they put the shades on the sun, and they take away the squint. It's DNL Window Tinting in Parkville and in White Marsh. You mentioned the Eagles and the Ravens way and things you learned in Baltimore for all this. Boy, there's just so much purple, through this thing. And to honor that, I got a special hat that I brought. I don't know if you saw this or not. For the first time ever, I'm wearing a green hat. But that's a green Raven hat, but that's Eagles colors. This is the closest. Man. This is the closest I'm going to do.
Have to take a shot at that.
Yeah, this is the closest I'm going to do for anyone in Philadelphia. Those cheesesteak eaters and those taste cake eaters up there and soft pretzel wearers. But Jimmy Schwartz, Joe Douglas, Andy Weidel. I found out T.J. McCrate from the scouting staff, from the old Ravens scouting staff's there.
Ian Cunningham.
Ian Cunningham, of course. So then you also have, right, you got Torrey, you got Corey Graham, you got Donnell Ellerby, and you got Timmy Jernigan.
Stephen Means, too. Give him a
Stephen
shout-out.
Means business.
And Tehran. Yeah. And Tehran.
And me.
And Tehran.
That's right. It's a
best
total
of them all.
We've shipped all of our greatest assets up to – oh, I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. All the assets up there, though. I mean, no, really. I mean, I think for the organization and for the Ravens, even in the modern era, and Coach Billick's walking around here, but Harbaugh came from the Philadelphia system, right, and Andy Reid's system, sort of installed that sort of way of life in Baltimore. Peterson comes back after the chip, sort of the Andy system that's there. And then the Harbaugh system extends out for, Pagano and, guys getting jobs in other places. There's a Raven way, and I think that maybe there's an Ozzie way of scouting. We don't call it the Ozzie way, but I think everybody over the last 20 years has taken a little piece of the Ravens in one way or another.
Yeah.
I don't know that people can take the Patriot way. The Patriot way is the quarterback and the coach, right?
Well, I mean,
so far.
Right.
It's not like Dean Pease brought the Patriots to Baltimore.
Sure.
I think the thing that New England does really well, and Doug Peterson has done it instantly with the Eagles, is that's getting everybody to buy into it, what it is you're selling. And I talked to him about that, and he said he has a veteran committee. Him being a former player allows him to really be able to put himself in their shoes and relate, and that's been a reason why he's gotten that buy-in. I mean, you got guys – Alshon Jeffrey had a contract on the line, and he did not have the best year. LeGarrette Blount's on a one-year deal. He's not getting carries regularly, but they're all buying into it. And to get back to the Ravens way, I mean, we talked about it yesterday about Joe Douglas and how at things like the Shrine Week, where Eric DeCosta and Ozzie Newsome were there, and they were really canvassing and talking to all the prospects. That's what you saw Joe Douglas do, last year. I couldn't be there this year, and it's funny, I joked with him about that. I said, man, you're taking me away from one of my favorite times of the year. I love Shrine, and I love Senior Bowl. I love the draft process. But it's really been good for the website to see the Eagles in the Super Bowl, so, I can't really complain.
And you came for the weather. I mean, it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, man. It's
lovely up here.
A great 10 degrees.
Got your sunscreen and sunglasses.
Yeah, right?
Turron Davenport is here. He's from Eagles Wire. He covers all things Eagles, hence me wearing my green hat and putting down my Howard Bank hat. You guys have geeked it up a little bit here over the time with draft and combine and all that kind of stuff. To get to this point for the Eagles and the draft itself, you've covered, 2 or 3 drafts for the Eagles?
Yeah,
Every year you're spanking them and kicking them around when they're trading away whole drafts to get a quarterback, having 3 quarterbacks, paying Chase Daniel all that money. Boy, that seems like ancient history a year and a half ago when you make a Super Bowl like this, because they were the most maligned organization after the draft a year and a half ago because of the Bradford, Daniel, all that logjam. I mean, you would say that Teddy Bridgewater's injury had a huge effect. Huge effect on the organization in a lot of ways. And I don't know that anybody a year and a half ago would have said, yeah, Eagles, they'll be in the Super Bowl a year and a half. I don't even know. I think that probably supersedes even their own timeline. I don't think Schwartz thought, we're just going to go there and I'm going to be in the Super Bowl right away, or Peterson. I think they've manufactured this a little early, and certainly doing it with a backup quarterback makes it even weirder.
Yeah, and, the thing is, you talk about the trades. Howie Roseman, he's wheeled and dealed his behind off.
Sure.
Derek Barnett, that pick is what they parlayed Sam Bradford into. And then you look at Eric Rowe. We talked about him earlier. He's a fourth-round pick. That's what that got him. And it was clear that they did not want him in Philly. I mean, that came right away in training camp. So to be able to turn that around for a fourth-round pick. And then, trade, 8 draft spots to move up, what was it, 92 to 99 to get Jernigan?
Yeah, well, yeah. No, that trade was how many draft spots was that actually?
I don't remember.
They just swapped.
Yeah, it was in the 90s.
Same round. Right.
So it was less than 9 picks.
Okay.
And to get a guy who's come in, Fletcher Cox, if you ask Fletcher about Tim Jernigan, he'll tell you right away, a lot of my success is because I got this guy next to me. And having a guy like Jernigan next to him that could demolish one-on-ones.
Boy, Jernigan's a good story. We go talk to him
because a great story.
Because he wasn't he was an improving player from my eyes last year with the Ravens. There was some celebration with him. There was some energy with him that, and what you would say, Luke, and you and I talked about this over a beer the other night, there was some old raving about him.
There was. The only thing with him, he wasn't the best fit with what the Ravens do with their offense or with their defensive line. He's a 4-3 D tackle. Just get after it.
Exactly.
Get after it. Two gap and stuff. Get after it. And that fit him very well. It's not as though he wasn't a good player with the Ravens. He was productive, but was he ever going to reach his ceiling? And I'm not sure he's reached it yet, but certainly I think you can see that he's been a better fit in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and it's funny because when he first got to Philly, he didn't really have that in springtime. Mini camp, etc., OTAs, he was looking good. But he was at a point where he would get upfield so quickly he would stop because he was so used to, I have to play at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
And that was something that he had to really work himself through before he could really start to find his potential. So it's just funny how, it's great you mentioned that, Luke, because he really wasn't a fit there, but he was such a good player that he was still able 5.5 sacks, as a D tackle.
Sure.
And that type of program is outstanding. So he was able to still show his ability. And working with Chuck Smith, the former Falcons pass rusher, helped him a lot with his hands. And you see it every day, when they're going against each other, they work on that stuff. And he's a disruptive player. I can't wait to see these guys on the interior going against those Patriots offensive linemen.
What do you like about this team that people aren't necessarily talking about? And I'm not even talking necessarily from an X's and O's standpoint. You're around this team every day. This has been a tremendous story. In Baltimore, we've talked so much about the Ravens having injuries, but this team lost its franchise left tackle, franchise quarterback, starting inside linebacker. Not that Darren Sproles was in his prime, but still a unique kind of player.
Yeah.
They lost a handful of really, really important players, and yet here we are. What do you like about this team that people haven't necessarily been talking about a whole lot?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's the closeness. These guys are like brothers.
Boy, everybody said that.
A lot of people are saying that.
That's what we're hearing from everyone, and that's not a mantra. That's, individually, what do you like? I had 4 people in the Eagles organization say, man, these guys are good people. There are a lot of good people here. Everybody just keeps saying that about the Eagles.
I'll tell you, you take Chris Long, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. Chris Long didn't have to put his hand around Malcolm Jenkins.
Very true.
During the protest, but during the national anthem. He didn't have to do that. You look at Wendell Smallwood, right? He's a running back.
Right.
He and Fletcher Cox are the best of friends.
That usually doesn't happen. Yeah.
That doesn't happen normally. The defense, the cornerbacks, they go out to eat together every week. The wide receivers, they go out to eat together every week. You have guys, Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, they lead a weekly Bible study. These are things you don't always see. So these guys are close as brothers. Some are close in faith. But then you also have just the trust that they have in each other, where I know that if I take this chance, you're going to have my back. So I'm going to play aggressively because I know that my brother is going to cover up for me.
Turron Davenport, Eagles Wire. You can follow him out on Twitter as well. And, of course, gearing up for the victory party and the parade. And, look, I didn't tell you this last week because I didn't have you on. But I didn't go to the championship game because I was afraid if they won, they were going to burn the city down. And if they lost, they were going to burn the city down. And I wake up at 9:30 in the morning, and they're Crisco greasing the poles.
Imagine being a lieutenant or that had to distribute that order.
Listen, I've already predicted this. And, you know, and when it happens, like last year I predicted the score. This year I'm not going for the score. This year I'm going to predict I think the Eagles are going to win, and when they win, there's going to be Crisco poles here in Minnesota, and some bare-ass, naked, crazy Eagles fan's going to get his junk stuck right up to the pole because it's about 10 below.
That's
here.
a visual I didn't need to have.
I'm telling you, these Eagle fans
here, pole, right?
we're still early in the week here. By Thursday or Friday, tell us what a show this is going to be, because this is the only warm place in Minnesota, the Mall of America. It's true. The rest of the place.
It's true.
If the Ravens were playing here right now and you drove out here, you would not be walking down 4th Avenue looking for Paisley Park. You would be looking like we've been looking every time we walk out the door, looking for the next time we'll be somewhere warm. That's the truth.
That's true.
It's awful.
You mean you don't like you press the red button and there's a heater, and I use that?
Yeah, I Facebooked that. That was crazy on Monday night. Glad your mom watches my Facebook, Luke, by the way. So at least I got one viewer there. Turron, good luck, man. And in the aftermath, I hope the book sells after you write the championship story of the Eagle Way.
Couple things in the works.
You working on that?
Yeah.
See, I knew that.
Can't jinx it, though.
I've been in his chair.
Right.
5 years ago, my team was going to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, he already wrote a book about Carson Wentz?
Yeah, we have that one now. I want to do the follow-up, talk about his coach.
Yeah,
so
very cool.
We'll see what happens.
By the way, when were you a believer in Peterson? Because let's be honest, he wasn't the most popular, sexy hiring, especially in the wake of the Chip Kelly era.
Man.
Put him on the spot.
Honestly, I was a believer when I saw the way he was able to keep that locker room together after that Carson Wentz, the trade to get Wentz. When you have Sam Bradford, Chase Daniel, and
this
Wentz,
kid from North Dakota, literally,
all in the same QB room, and there was absolutely no fighting, no negative. Well, except for when Bradford stormed out when he first heard, but after that, you didn't see any issues. So the way he was able to get all those guys to come together, 3 guys who felt that they should have been starters, that's when I was a believer. And it's funny because that is actually what has helped this team this year in staying together.
It's all brought to you by Howard Bank, as well as our friends at King Discount Liquors, Lottery Beer, Booze, and more. And, of course, our friends at Box Hill Pizzeria, where I had the crab cakes last week. And if you're near Abingdon or near the internet, you can get them shipped to you. They'll even ship in Philadelphia. BoxHillPizzeria.com. Stop by and see them in Abingdon. Luke is here. My thanks to Turron Davenport. You go check him out at Eagles Wire, a subsidiary of the USA Today. Can I say that correctly? Is that subsidiary?
Yeah, we're part of USA Today Digital Media Group.
Beautiful. There it is. He'll be in Philadelphia eating cheesesteaks and pretzels, having a good time. We'll be on Radio Row here in Minnesota trying to stay warm. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports. Awesome.